Nina Simone is one of the best singers and performers of all time. Period. But she's mostly often erased from a large part of the entertainment industry for her radicalness and her willingness to sacrifice everything. Her relationship, her money, her success for the cause and fight for African Americans. Her music had different styles of classical, folk, blues, gospel, jazz, R&B and pop. Hi everyone, I'm SerenaTheJournalist and I'll be talking about why our favourite singers and artists aren't as radical compared to the likes of Nina Simone. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Nina Simone was born in Eunice Kathleen Wyman on February the 21st, 1933, and had the height of her career during the 1960s. She used her words to express and comment about things that she was experiencing. Some of her most radical songs could be For Women, a song which discussed the standards imposed on black women in America. Her autobiography, I Put a Spell on You, which inspired black women to define beauty and identify beauty for themselves without the influence of social impositions. Or To Be Young, Gifted and Black, which is written in memory of Simone's late friend Lorraine Hansberry, author of a play A Raisin in the Sun, who had died in 1965 at the age of just 34. There's actually a documentary on Netflix about her life, her songs, her activism and her descent, which I recommend everyone to watch. She, I believe, was one of the most musical artists we have ever seen. Ever. In 1965, she performed at the Stars for Freedom rally in Montgomery, Alabama, the night before the end of the Selma to Montgomery March. And when we think about how artists like to dip their toe in politics and then come out of them, she was not one of them. She leaped into the pool of politics, condemning anyone she felt needed to catch a stray without caring about the consequences. She was a representation of how a true radical could be as an artist, something that many fail to do today. The 1960s in the United States of America was not a great decade. One of the greatest boxers of all time, Cassius Clay, rejected his slave name and was known as Muhammad Ali, a name given to him by Elijah Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. Nelson Mandela was sentenced to life in prison, which he spent 27 years incarcerated. And still in the same month, Malcolm X resigned from the Nation of Islam. You had Lyndon Johnson, the 36th president of the United States after the JFK assassination, a few months after, signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. If you don't know, the Civil Rights Act was an act which prohibited discrimination based on race, colour, religion, sex, or natural origin. It helped protect voting rights for black people. Segregation was outlawed in public places and federally funded programs were made to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. On September 15th, 1963, 4 girls were killed when white supremacists planted more than a dozen sticks of dynamite in the steps of a Baptist church in Birmingham in Alabama. The children were preparing for a sermon titled A Love That Forgives. And according to a witness at the time, it was literally like their bodies flew across the basement like rag dolls. An hour later, after Nina heard of this tragedy, she composed a song called Mississippi Goddamn. She said, "It was my first civil rights song and it erupted out of me quicker than I could write it down." In March of 1964, despite all the chaos and civil unrest and blatant racism going on, Nina Simone took to the stage and performed this controversial song to a white crowd at the Carnegie Hall. This was Mississippi Goddamn. But why was the song so radical? At the time where, despite so much attack on the African American community, there were many artists who were at the start of their career or at the peak and were topping the chart. There was Diana Ross and the Supremes, Etta James, James Brown, Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin, and a lot more. Some of the greatest musicians of all time just happened to be black, but none of them had sung a song as radical as Mississippi Goddamn. And it makes sense. Many of these artists were sold to Motown Records, which signed so many successful black recording artists such as The Temptations later on, Marvin Gaye, Jackson 5, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Lionel Richie, Gladys Knight. You get the point. A lot of black people were part of Motown Records. And it did help that Berry Gordy Jr. founded Motown record label, which was the highest earning African American business for decades. But despite this, none of these artists were willing to sing songs like Mississippi Goddamn. Maybe they didn't want to rock the boat, jeopardize their sales, and be casted out from the industry? Maybe, I don't know. And at that time when so many artists were doing so well, there was still so much poverty on the streets. The homes where black people were going through it. And with this poverty, no one was singing like Nina. They were black and proud and hopeful songs. You had Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come in 1964, which have had many renditions. and yet is a catalyst on literally a change is going to come, and for black people to keep the faith. James Brown also performed in 1968 Say It Loud and Black and Proud, which was a funk and fun song where he addresses racism against black Americans and a deep need for black empowerment. The song urged that black people demand a chance to do things for ourselves and that we are tired of beating our heads against the wall and working for someone else. But despite that, to me, that's not radical. It's empowering. Yes, definitely empowering, but not radical. Doing something radical was a big risk to your career. A big risk which now we call standing on business.
Talking to you that I'm standing on business, is it?
Asserted that artists have a duty to reflect the times. And in an interview with the Black Journal, originally running in 1969, she said, "An artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times." I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice. But I choose to reflect the times and the conditions in which I find myself. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. Young people, black and white, know this. That's why they're so involved in politics. We will shape our country and mould this country, or it will not be moulded and shaped at all anymore. So I don't think you have a choice. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist. Interesting enough, some of the lyrics in this song was, "You don't have to live next to me, just give me my equality. Yes, you lied to me all these years, you told me to wash and clean my ears and talk real fine just like a lady, and you stopped calling me Sister Sadie. Oh, but this whole country is full of lies. You're all gonna die and die like flies." Most southern states literally banned this song because they thought it was too much and too radical. Now granted, not every singer and artist has to use their music for that, as some use their music to dissociate themselves from the world and just as an outlet. And you know, being radical did come at a cost. Nina's freedom was constantly threatened. Her stardom was dimmed, and yes, we look at her now as a star, but at the time, she wasn't considered a star and was basically cancelled. But one thing about Nina, she didn't care about being cancelled. In one of her performances, she wears a V-neck yellow dress and braids combed up and big metal earrings. She asks a multi-generational black crowd if they are ready. Are you ready to do what is necessary to do? Are you ready to kill if necessary? Are you ready to do what you have to do to create life? Are you ready to smash white things? Are you ready to build black things? Now, let me tell you something. I am not here condemning murder or violence. Let me get that clear. In my opinion, Nina was responding to a time where all black people were met with constant violence, and she wanted her community to step up. She didn't dabble in with her radicalness in her song. She was 100% radical. And interesting enough, I don't think, in my opinion, we've seen any attempts yet that someone put their career on the line and gone to this extent in their music to try and represent a time as so many people in different communities are met with the same violence. Many have dabbled and gone on live stages and said a few things, but at the same time simultaneously trying to please their audience and the man behind the contract who gets the big bucks. It seems that most artists want to be revolutionary like Nina Simone, singing songs about freedom, to fight the fight and unity, but in reality, they don't want to be radical like her. And so this is why some of your favorite artists aren't as radical as you thought. Now, we're starting off with Tupac. FYI guys, I love Tupac. Before any of you start commenting me in the comments with, you know,
I'm not a real fan. Why are you talking about him? Or why are you saying all this stuff? You don't get his music.
Stop right there. I'm just saying what I think of facts. Tupac was and is considered one of the best rappers of all time, being politically, socially and consciously aware of what he rapped about and how it would or wouldn't affect certain communities. And there was a meaning in most of his songs. In 1992 interview with E! News, he explained why he didn't care about whether his violence and rage in his music would make white audiences uncomfortable, saying, "What about when I felt uncomfortable for 400 years? There was an inability to link the politics of gender and sexuality within his work, which therefore created numerous contradictions as well as possible illegitimacy in the eyes of many." It does make sense that Tupac was politically aware, considering his mother, Afeni Shakur, was a political activist and a leading member of the Black Panther Party, which had challenged the US state in the late 1960s, and his stepfather was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list during the 1980s. Many members of the Panthers were unfortunately killed in gun battles with police, and one of the most famous cases was Fred Hampton, who was drugged and murdered in his sleep by Hoover's agents in Chicago back in 1969. During the same year, Afeni Shakur and other members were charged by the NYPD with plotting bombings. She spent the next 2 years in prison awaiting the verdict for this, and it was while behind bars she gave birth to Tupac in 1971. Even his name is inspired by politics. His name is inspired by the name of a leader in Peru who had fought Spanish colonists in the 16th century. Growing up in Baltimore and New York, he was alive around the retreat of Black nationalism and the rise of the new right in Ronald Reagan's election to the White House in 1980. Hip-hop was continuously evolving throughout the 80s to the early to mid-90s. The aesthetics was different, the choice, the outfits and jewelry, the music and production was very specific and helped shape the landscape of the art form and the time. Hip-hop was really authentic, but also a cyclical genre that looked to sample vintage music, wear different clothes and have unique voices to remap and change the culture and let it be something identifiable. One writer actually said the agitation he felt during the final act of his life practically sweats through the records. He frequently sounds as if he's about to fold in on himself, while reserving plenty of venomous scorn for his enemies, other rappers and industry figures, but also the elected officials targeting his communities. There actually is a museum that gives an immersive experience of Tupac's life in LA, which I've never been to. Apparently when you enter, there is a dark room with videos showing violence against Black people, often at the hands of the state. And this is just some of the political context to the rapper's artistic portfolio. Another writer wrote, Tupac and his generation had to locate a new personnel and cultural strategy in the aftermath of the killings of leaders of the caliber and courage of Malcolm, MLK, Fred Hampton, and Huey Newton. They also had to seek in it a political environment in which Ronald Reagan and then Bill Clinton regarded as the apex of political aspirations. Now, I'm not going to act silly, a lot of Tupac's songs upheld misogyny and used derogatory language and negative portrayals of women, which unfortunately was not uncommon in this era of music, but also what I think makes it hard for some people to love him, because we literally see two sides of the artist. But he was aware of how hip-hop had sort of responsibility of trying to uplift the Black community, but also speak out what they were experiencing. Most of you have heard Thug Life, which is his musical philosophy and tattooed on his chest. It stands for the hate you give little infants, everyone. This highlighted the struggles, alienation and criminality that African Americans experienced in the US. It was a message to social inequality, and his words were so powerful that they have outlived him. Naturally, this video is not just about Tupac, so I can't go into his whole portfolio, but many consider his songs Keep Your Head Up as one of his most wokeness. In the song, he celebrates Blackness, women, Black women, and tries to promote hope and positivity despite the major setbacks and circumstances he's in. His song Blasphemy in his album The 7-Day Theory, he discusses racism, capitalism, poverty, faith, and again the Black experience. He consciously recounted his coming to be within the world and how Black people were othered. It's interesting because Angela Davis wrote in Freedom is a constant struggle. Progressive struggles, whether they are focused on racism, repression, poverty, or other issues, are doomed to fail if they do not also attempt to develop a consciousness of the insidious promotion of capitalist individualism. And this is what Tupac does. His song Holler If You Hear Me definitely would have scared the hell out of some audiences that had never engaged with his lyrics before. And his approval of life of crime captures the anger of the whole community. Even though there is a political consciousness and awareness, some of that did get lost in the lyrics and analysis of women. Due to hip-hop's overwhelming male dominance and patriarchal structure, there isn't space for women to discuss the contradictions of liberation and advocate for more changes. So you have this issue where he is trying to be radical, but there's also a side of misogyny. How can one be radical but still uphold these negative patriarchal values? I don't think it works. The music industry mirrors this patriarchal structure of the world in which we live in, and women like Lil' Kim, Queen Latifah, Foxy Brown, Monie Love and NC Light had to work twice as hard to break through the glass ceiling to sometimes even get half the accolades they deserve. The women in the Combahee River Collective once said that we feel solidarity with progressive Black men. But we struggle altogether with black men against racism, while we also struggle with black men about sexism. The inconsistency in how we spoke about women and black women would rightfully cause many of that sphere of people to disengage with his music. Even if Tupac is politically aware, he didn't call for reparations on what African Americans were experiencing like Nina did. If one is fighting for one group of people and then sometimes bashing another minority, it complicates how we look at radicals and the standard we believe radicals should uphold. Tupac wasn't able to dominate white spaces and rap to them about these problems. His music, despite being popular in the black community, didn't reach mainstream for a long time. He was in a space in the music industry where more artists were saying what he was saying compared to 20 years ago, when it seemed like Nina and only a handful of others were speaking out. He had people like Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg behind him, but Nina partially had no one, and yet still stuck to her ideals and stood on business, which unfortunately did cause her career to fall a bit. And now this is not me saying that Tupac isn't great and that he doesn't deserve all the accolades that he's gotten, because he is great. But I've seen a lot of people say he's radical, and so I'm just questioning, is he truly radical as we think he is? When we listen to all his songs, are there some bits we could say,
I actually don't agree with that. Or, yeah, I get what he's saying.
Of course, artists are allowed to grow, and I think Tupac in a lot of his songs showed a lot of growth. Even Maya Angelou one time said that on the set of...
Oh my god. What's that trying to... On the set of...
Poetic Justice. Oh my god. On the set of... I can't believe I forgot that. Poetic Justice. He just seems so angry. And I do think in some of the years in his life, we can tell where the anger is, and we can tell where he's opening up to his more soft and vulnerable side. But I do think it's important that we consider how we actually see these radicals. Next, we got Mr. Kendrick Lamar. Come on, I cannot talk about radicalism with artists without discussing Kendrick. Kendrick is considered one of the most political rappers and best rappers of the 21st century. Now notice I said political and not radical, because there is a difference. This year, as we all know, he performed the most significant sporting event in North America, the Super Bowl. Many was expecting the performance to be this whole radical thing, and though there were imagery, commentary and symbols, I wouldn't consider it to be radical, which I will discuss later. The hip-hop genre has been a platform for social commentary for marginalized people and a way for artists to speak their truth and bring power to their words and situation. Without a doubt, Kendrick has used his poetry and criticizes the racial industry through songs like DNA, All Right and The Black of the Berry, to name a few. But just because you talk about revolution and how it will be televised doesn't mean you actually have an intent on taking and being part in the revolution. Even though he has many powerful songs, he still is an active member of the system he likes to criticize. To me, the revolution is not just about words and the message, but about taking a risk and sacrificing. It is an actual attempt of dismantling systems of power, not just condemning and critiquing them where you still get paid at the end of the day. His whole career is exciting within the industry where it's possible to have a powerful voice at a price. He is without a doubt politically conscious and has proved that time and time over. At the 2016 Grammy Awards, he dressed up in a jumpsuit, alluding to someone in prison, as he paid tribute to Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old boy who was killed by the police. That was a deep performance, and Kendrick was practically on the verge of tears during that tribute. He rapped lyrics such as, "This is modern day slavery. The reason why I'm by your house, you throw your briefcase all on the couch. I plan on creeping through your damn door and blowing out every piece of your brain till your sons jump in your arms." He rapped that the conversation for this entire nation, this is bigger than us. He's right. This is bigger than us. And the performance was so powerful that it was taken off the air and from YouTube and streaming services within a week. People may think that that was radical, that Kendrick dared to perform something that wasn't accepted by the music industry. But he still went on to win 5 Grammys that same year and then continued to perform on bigger stages, being a little less provocative with his performances so they wouldn't be taken off the air. In the 2022 Super Bowl, which had Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, Kendrick and Eminem, there was a clear censorship in what the performance could and couldn't do. During Kendrick's performance of All Right, he decided to silence himself in one of the most politically charged lyrics in the song.
And we hate Popo. Wanna kill us dead in the street for sure.
Instead, Kendrick rapped, "We hate wanna kill us dead in the street for sure." The song is critiquing police brutality, but its censorship is almost silencing that exact thing. Black culture was at its height at the Super Bowl show, and many black audiences watched as stars of different generations came together to perform and hold some people at the top accountable. But the timeless anthem was silenced to appeal not to the millions of viewers, but to the few people at the top. And obviously he was fine with that censorship, which is why he was later able to headline the Super Bowl as a solo performer just a few months ago. I do think that if Kendrick stood on business, he either wouldn't be allowed to perform that song or he would have said, screw it. But to perform the song and censor some of the words just because of a few people at the top, I don't really think that's given. This year at the Super Bowl, the premise for his set was the Black American experience being played out at the same time of the Black American game. Kendrick said the revolution shall be televised, and this was a twist on the 1971 Black Liberation song by Jill Scott Heron. The revolution will not be televised. But I'm not gonna lie, a true revolution isn't a show or spectacle. So what Kendrick did was low-key just a performance that was sponsored by $1 billion corporations. Samuel L. Jackson played Uncle Sam, who narrated the set. He's an avatar, a representation of the American establishment that says black people are too loud, too reckless, too ghetto. By the time Sam is set to give Kendrick his approval for dying it down, when he says, that's what America wants, nice and calm, you're almost there, don't mess it, then Kendrick cuts in with Not Like Us, and then Sam walks off the stage. This commentary by Samuel L. Jackson lies in the belief that black people, its culture and art are uncivilized. The show was a big symbolism game, as you later had tennis legend Serena Williams crip walk during the set, which I believe was an indirect rumored ex-Drake. In 2012, she was essentially called too ghetto by the leaders of Wimbledon, as she did the exact same thing. So it's literally a full curve moment for her, queen. In the show, his dancers were dressed in red, white and blue outfits, and during the performance took the shape of a flag around Kendrick, which would symbolize black people's place in the country. But considering Donald Trump was in the audience, it could also be an allusion to the fall of America's essence and values, because honestly, I don't know what's going on in that country. Respectfully. Many people call the performance revolutionary, and they critically examined African-American struggle in the past and the present. And I agree, the performance was a powerful commentary on racism. It didn't, however, highlight the issue of capitalism, and in my opinion, failed to interlink the two, as black people do suffer from both. Well, not so much millionaires and billionaires. And I say this because just because you involve imagery of racism and anti-racism, it doesn't mean it's revolutionary. There is so much art that denounces racism and black power, yet still upholds the status quo when it comes to capitalism. This is the pattern with many black celebrities. They use so much anti-racism imagery in what they do, yet at the same time fail to mention the capitalist system and flaunt their wealth in front of the faces of their fans. His 2022 album, Mr. Morales and the Steppers, is about art, self-love, self-growth, black masculinity and generational trauma, but also about how he can't live up to the expectations of the public. We all know him in this project to wear a crown which had 8,000 encrusted diamonds on it and served as a reminder of hip-hop's root in entrepreneurial capitalism. His repetition of the words, I can't please everybody, into an over-amplified microphone is the truth that he realizes he has to live, and is almost seen as if he feels like he must sacrifice himself like Jesus did to get the message out to the world. A little bit of a stretch, but alright. In the album, he uses traditional forms of black representation and calls black identity politics in hip-hop into question. He tells us that truth cannot be articulated in fixed identities, and instead through an endless, persistently disrupted search for the self. He gives us a view of the truth of his found self, letting us know it has survived the hype, expectations on black people, trauma, generational curses, and the ravages of capitalism. And as he escapes capitalism, he shares this with the millions of fans worldwide who are still struggling with daily capitalism. So yeah, Kendrick is the voice of the people, but at the same time, that's all you can be. A voice, because your lifestyle doesn't represent that, and it can't because of who he is. His actions don't really represent that. The stages he performs on doesn't really represent that, because yes, he's getting paid thousands of dollars to perform at the Super Bowl, but who's giving him the checks? Censoring out lyrics that you made. For who? And so I'll leave that with you guys and let you think about if he is a radical like many people say he is. Now, my final analyst of celebrities who people like to say are radical is Jay Z and Beyonce. I had to talk about them. The Carters for many are a symbol of black achievement and what can be achieved when you work hard. They have contributed so much to the music industry, inspired a generation of aspiring artists, and given space for dancers in their tour to express themselves freely. But for others, they represent black capitalism, making their billions at the hands of people in a lesser position to them. And their few songs of black pride are mistaken for radicalism. In Everybody Inspired by Nina Simone, Nobody Singing Mississippi Goddamn by Ismatu Gwendolyn said it perfectly when she wrote, Nina Simone was not radical because of the art she produced. She was radical because of the life that she lived, and the art that she produced reflected the life that she lived. It is only natural for the art that an artist produced. Nina Simone was radical because she chose to be, and then she produced radical art. The Carters do not live that radical life that they sing in their songs, obviously. And so the only way to relate to the black struggle, we could say, is just through being black. Not the financial oppression that can come from it. I do believe they've experienced racism in the industry. Beyonce literally this year didn't even get noticed at the Country Awards, despite Cowboy Carter clearly being a country album. But I think it's time we get real about this myth of the Carters being radical. And I just want to point out as well, disclaimer, I do love Beyonce's music. I don't listen to Jay Z a lot, but I don't hate him, so yeah. Race brings the only thing to relate to people who listen to their music, and it's not their fault entirely. Yes, we all want to have money, but many of us don't yearn to be billionaires. We just want to be comfortable. And so when they sing certain lyrics in their songs, it's almost as if I'm asking myself, who are they really trying to sing for? Are you trying to make a stance? Are you trying to be relatable? Are you trying to say you're aware? Because they never really hold the government accountable, which is what real radicals do. Take Beyonce's album, The Lion King, The Gift, an album based on the music which she voiced as Nala in the 2019 film adaptation.
It was full of black imagery, black achievement, wealth in those high mansions that cost how much, and gold imagery and elegant black pride and blending different African genres in her music.
It was given black cast, period. I actually love the album despite it being quite forgotten compared to our other songs. It actually helped those appreciate Africa, African culture, and blackness in general with songs like Brown Skin Girl, Find Your Way Back, Spirit, and Water, and had African artists on the album such as Wizkid, Burna Boy, and many more. Black Praise is a song that celebrates black-owned businesses, black culture, and fighting racial injustice. But it is easier to say fight this fight when personally you're not living that fight or just see it at a distance. Some of the lyrics in the song are rubber bullets bouncing off me. And yes, this is representing how black lives are at the bullets of the police and the lives lost to police brutality. But this is something that billionaires have never really had to experience for the last 30 years. And so I get why she's saying it, but I don't actually think it has much of the effect as she thought it would, because she actually doesn't experience that racial tension with the police on a daily. And I hate to say it, but Jay Z is just as tone deaf when it comes to radicalism, and he knows it. He knows that we know he knows it, but he never outwardly says it. He is very influential in the black community and for any black people in his space to actually tell him the truth. He once claimed that he was like Che Guevara with bling on when he responded to critics that he contradicted himself wearing a Che Guevara shirt and a diamond encrusted necklace. If you don't know, Che was a Marxist revolutionary and played an important role in the Cuban Revolution. During the 1960s and 70s, he became a symbol of rebellion and resistance against oppression. Now, Jay Z justified his choice by arguing that because he and Che both came from environments of poverty and deprivation, they were similar. But Che actually came from a bougie family and grew up to oppose the system. Jay-Z, however, embraced the system through collaboration and assimilation. Jay-Z's commentary on this is something called the black celebrity gospel, which is the notion that being black alone is enough to make you be radical, which is 100% wrong. Many black celebrities rely on their social capital within oppressed society and groups of people, and so it's insular when they try to relate because they are just black capitalists. This video actually really speaks about black conservatism really well, so I recommend you guys take a look at it by FD Signifier. The Carters, like many others, are artists who benefit from the role capitalism plays in our society and consequently in the ongoing slow demise of the planet. It is the duality of being both aware of the system's flaws, with songs like Break My Soul from the perspective of a character who was overworked and burnt out and benefiting of the same system, which can sometimes make the art come across as out of touch. Beyonce's song, for example, 16 Carriages, is about the sacrifices she made and her parents made to get where she is now. Her lyrics are going so hard now, I miss my kids, overworked and overwhelmed, underpaid and overwhelmed, $16, working all day. Let's just remember those lyrics quickly, because I remember there was so much controversy around her Ivy Park clothing line back in 2016, the same year she did that Super Bowl. But we'll come to that in a minute. British tabloid newspaper The Sun on Sunday exposed her company for how they treated the Sri Lankan government workers as sweatshop slaves, earning 44p, which is 64 cents, and making empowering Beyonce clobber. This was crazy considering Beyonce has always been about women empowerment. How is that acceptable from her? And even if she wasn't in charge of this decision, her company could definitely afford to pay the workers way more than 64 cents an hour. Radicals fought for these exact things, for economic freedom, for the working class. But when you have people that are making companies, it's almost hard to claw out of these chains of capitalism, as these celebrities depend on people to work for a small wage for the sake of survival, not because these workers want to work here, for the sake of survival. Billionaires depend on the working class, whether they think so or not. And as we all know, fast fashion in the Western world exploits people in especially third world countries. When Beyonce is talking about her parents being underpaid, what was her company doing to the seamstress for Ivy Park? We all remember when Beyonce performed at the Super Bowl halftime show in 2016 alongside Bruno Mars and Coldplay. The star performed Formation, where her and her backup dancers were dressed in Black Panther party-themed outfits, which was to pay homage to the political revolutionaries. And many people question whether this was the best way to pay homage to the Black Panthers and whether Beyonce, a billionaire, was the best person to do this. Considering most of the Black Panther agents didn't have financial freedom and dedicated their life to the cause, her song embraced Southern heritage as well as addressing social justice issues, particularly those affecting the Black community. And one of the lyrics of the song is, I might just be a Black Bill Gates in the making, which is meant to be inspiring and like, great, she may be a Black Bill Gates, but the majority of us won't be. Even the title itself can be interpreted as a call for unity in organisation and collective action. But even so, is Beyonce a part of that unity she's calling for? Is she going out on the streets protesting? Is she demanding more for the government? Or is she just putting on a show for them? You know, I'm not gonna lie, she definitely would have made the white people mad. This Black show on national TV, but respectfully, it's harmless when you think about it. She also paid tribute to Michael Jackson's Super Bowl outfit from his 1993 performance. So it was a performance of many tributes, which was cute, but realistically not that effective. It definitely may have brought awareness to the Black Panthers for many people who weren't aware of them. But instead of radical change, I'm gonna say that wasn't really effective. Revolution and resistance was used as entertainment, despite the movement suffering from political unrest. And this would have been received differently if it was someone like Tupac who was performing this, as he was literally the son of a Black Panther. He was raised to understand what those things meant, not just in theory, but practice and in real life time. I even just think about the obsession the Carters have with Black billionaires. They're quite insular. As I mentioned before, many of us just want to be comfortable, and having billionaires practically say how great it is to be a billionaire is not uplifting at all. Jay Z in his song Family Feud featuring Beyonce says, nah, we did that. Black owned things, 100% black owned champagne. And another line is, what's better than one billionaire? Two. And it's just like, all I can do is sigh, because the obsession needs to stop. Having more Black billionaires in the world does not do nothing for the Black community. Yeah, they may do some scholarships or programs, they may build a leisure centre, but in all honesty, it just gives them a way to allot more capital on their fans through their music, overpriced tours, expensive merch, and just as themselves as people. It's not edifying, it's great for them, but it's not fulfilling for the majority. Even at the start of the music video, there's a quote by James Baldwin from his essay of The Devil Finds Work, where he discusses the resilience of marginalised community during adversity and obstacles. The song is about an affair. So respectively, James Baldwin isn't even talking about that. They're using radicals and radical imagery to make it seem as though they're from the cause, when realistically, Jay-Z, you're just talking about cheating on your wife. The James Baldwin quote really had nothing to do with the music video or the song. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments below if you think I'm wrong. It's nice to have a little discussion. I think the Carters are the most insular, and it's not entirely their fault because they are very, 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 very wealthy people, and so they will never have the experience that 99% of black people around the world have. The system has failed to deliver optimal material outcomes for poor working people, leading to widespread discontent and resentment towards capitalism. Corporations exploit these sentiments by packaging them as entertainment for profit, even as they start talking about revolution, and they still reinforce the status quo. As Matthew Gwendolyn also writes, black capitalists benefit from revolutionaries. I cannot say that revolutionaries benefit from black capitalists. The charity model is fine and dandy, if not tired. Black folks with money given quietly to families who had a member lynched by the police. They are typically the first to turn their backs, keep their pocketbooks tight and their lyrics passable across races. But when it comes to struggle, time to die, and the weaponized state infiltrates communities, kidnaps people from their homes, shoots them dead in their beds, picks them off one by one. The music industry today comes with a limit of what you can and cannot do. To be radical, there needs to be a willingness to sacrifice success, money and career for the sake of a greater cause, which is what Nina Simone did and many will probably fail to do. But I do think that this generation wants more from leaders and the people who look up to in all fields, including music and what they actually do with their platforms. With how easy it is to access what's going on in every single part of the world, we expect celebrities to have a level of consciousness, be active and vocal on deep issues such as social, racial and climate injustice, as well as reproductive rights and gun control. It's possible that we won't ever see anyone else like Nina Simone, and we won't see a song like Mississippi Goddamn again, because the industry simply won't allow it. But it's clear that fans want our favourite singers to have more of a backbone. We want to see at least someone like Nina Simone, and whether that starts with our favourite singers or new and upcoming ones, or ones that haven't had their height yet, it is needed in the society, especially in the society. So that is all from me. I'm SerenaTheJournalist. What do you think about radicals and the music industry? What do you think about our favourite singers and about some of the people that I mentioned in this video in terms of radicalism? Please like, comment and subscribe on the way to 100 subscribers, and I'll be back soon with another video.